Alrighty, so here's a quick scuffed tutorial on how I do my animation things for RE Engine games. This example is just going to be DMC5 because that's the one I do the most, but it should work with the other ones. I'm not sure about newer ones like Street Fighter 6, but it should work. Should. Emphasis on should. So anyways, I'll link everything that you need down in the description. You're going to need the Gnosis script for 3ds Max. You're going to need the Motless tool. Preferably Max 2017. I'm not sure if this tool for the Motless will work with older or newer versions, but yeah. You'll also need Blender because, quite frankly, I don't like using Max. I try to cut it out of as much of my workflow as possible, but unfortunately, you do need it for animation stuff. So for starters, I set my path for Gnosis here. And what I'm going to go ahead and do is import my mesh. I'm going to use Dante's mesh. I'm just going to press load. Alrighty, there we go. Now we got it all loaded in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the root, select child nodes, then press the little thingy to unhide it. And then you can see I got all the bones selected. I'm going to go ahead and open up a mot list. It can literally be any mot list, like it doesn't matter. What we're doing here is we are setting up the armature in a T-pose position because most games either have their armatures set up in T-poses or A-poses, not this whatever the fuck they got going on in RE Engine pose. So yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and just choose a mot list, and then I'm gonna ignore the select an animation thing. I'm gonna go down to import bones, click T-pose, unclick position if that is selected, then hit import bone positions. You get a pop-up. It's all imported now, yippee! So now what we can do is we can go to the animation tab here, go down to bone tools, and then go to object properties, click bone on, so that way when these export, they'll export as bones. So I'm gonna go ahead and export. I'm gonna save it as T-pose. You can save it as whatever. I'm just gonna call it T-pose because that's easier. Save it. If you already have one there, just overwrite it, doesn't matter. And then press OK, and now it's all exported. Now we go on to Blender to do the actual work. Okay, so here in Blender you can see I have an animation from a completely different game here. Just a funny little dance, couple hundred frames. What I've done is I've gone ahead and I've set the start to frame 0, and then I've taken the playback thingy all the way to 0. I'm going into pose mode here. I have every bone selected, they're all highlighted blue. I'm gonna go to pose, clear transform, all. That'll set it in its resting pose. So you can see here, it's in an A pose, which is not quite a T pose, but that's super duper easy to fix. Just with everything selected, press I, insert keyframe at available, and what this will do is it'll make the first frame, which is frame 0, into the resting pose. This is going to make it easier to transfer the animations. Next, what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to go ahead and import FBX. I got the T pose all pulled up here. And then you can see we've got it all imported here. I'm gonna also go ahead here and join all of these submeshes just so that way it is easier for me to hide and unhide stuff as I see fit. And I'm gonna go ahead and delete these empties here. And then what I'm gonna go and do is I'm gonna select the DMC5 armature. I'm going to go into pose mode. I'm going to go ahead and select the upper arm. I'm going to turn on x-axis mirroring, and then I'm going to press R, Y, and then I'm going to type in -45. If you're doing it on the left arm, you're going to want to do +45. And this will set it up in an A pose, you know, because when it's a T pose, the arms are moving 90 degrees outwards. So by putting it in 45 degrees, that's setting it up into an A pose. I don't think I need to do that. That's basic geometry there. And so what I'm going to go ahead and do just for the sake of visualization is I'm just going to go ahead and copy that, apply that. That basically will apply the armature modifier, and then I'm going to go into pose mode, select everything, and then apply that as the rest pose. Okay, so after you applied that as your rest pose, what you're going to want to go ahead and do is you're going to want to go ahead and press the N key to get into this little menu here. You're going to want to choose this, it's in the description, it's called Rococo. You're going to need to make an account to use it. It's really stupid, I know, but it's like, there are other retargeting things out there, but this is just the one that I use. So this tutorial is going to revolve around this one. So it's going to ask you to choose armatures. So source will be the armature where you want the animation to go to. And then target is going to be this armature. And then you're going to want to go ahead and click bone list. So it's going to build it, might take a couple minutes. It's usually pretty good at auto-detecting where each bone is, but in some cases you may have to manually go through and go ahead and modify stuff. So in my case, I'm just getting rid of the root because in this animation the root isn't going to move at all. It's just going to be the hip bone that is moving. So I'm going to turn off auto scale here. It's usually on by default, but in my case it's off. And then for use pose, you can use rest if you want to. I usually use current, which is why I set that first frame of my target animation to be the resting pose, and then why I set this one to be, you know, similar. So then you can go ahead and click retarget animation. It'll take a couple minutes, sometimes less, sometimes more, depends on how long your animation is. Okay, so once we have everything all transferred, what I'm going to go ahead and do is just scrub through the timeline, make sure everything looks as it should, no weird errors with the animation export or anything like that. Everything looks good. So now what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to select the armature, I'm going to select the first frame here, and then I'm going to go ahead and press delete and delete that A pose. Now it's in the initial starting pose for us. I'm going to set the start to frame number 1, and make sure it's on frame number 1. Just scrub through again, double check, you know, double, triple, quadruple, however many checks. And then make sure you have all your keyframes selected, you have your animation selected, and then just go to File, Export, FBX. You're going to want to set your presets to selected objects, armature. You're going to want to bake the image. You're going to want to So once you're in there, what you're going to want to do is go to selected objects, make sure that's selected, go to armature, bake animation, then go down to this armature drop-down menu, make sure you have leaf bones unchecked, and then you should be good. You can export it to be whatever you want it to be. So this is the name of my dance, Moonrise, so I'm going to go ahead and export that to FBX. It'll take a few seconds, but once it's done, you're going to go on ahead and go into 3ds Max. So once you're in 3ds Max, you're going to want to go ahead and import your FBX. You can see I got mine here. Just going to go ahead and scrub through the timeline, make sure it looks good. You can see you got all these big things on the outside though. That means that there's something wrong with the scale, so we can't import it into the game like that. So what we got to do is we got to go under here. We got to go and select just the hip, nothing else. Then we're going to want to click on that, select child nodes, open up the listener, and then you're going to want to copy this. I'm going to go ahead and put this in the description of the video. It's just for bone in selection, do reset scale, one word, bone. And then just click on an empty line, paste it in, press enter. You can see all the scale looks normal. I'm just going to go back and select just the hip again this time, not the child nodes of it. Going to go ahead and drag that onto the root. And then you're going to want to select the root. You're going to clone it. Make sure it's set to a copy and not an instance. Press OK. And then select the root again. And then do the exact same thing. Reset the scale on the root. And then with the copied root selected, go to press Shift or Control and then select the hip. So root first, then the hip. Then on the Motlist tool, click Reparent. And then if you scrub through, you can see the scale on everything is all correct, so that's great. Now we can just go ahead and delete this old root. You can go ahead and rename it to just plain old root. And then after that, what I'm going to do is, I'm just going to do this just for my peace of mind, just to see how it looks. I'm going to select everything, and then I'm going to go to Animation, go into Bone Tools, Object Properties, Bone On, and then I'm going to go to File, Export, and then I'm going to call this one Moonrise Dance Scaled because we rescaled it, so. And then I'm going to go ahead and create a new scene. I'm not going to save anything from it. I'm going to go ahead and choose my no assist path again. I'm going to go ahead and import Dante's mesh again. That's the mesh that I'm using. So in your case, you would just want to select the mesh that you're using as your base for the animation. Alrighty, and then once you got that imported, you're going to want to go ahead and import this scaled animation that you just saved. So that would be right here. And then you're just going to want to go ahead and scrub through to double check that everything's okay. So this part is totally optional. I personally just like to do this for my peace of mind just to see how it looks. Make sure everything is good. And then I'm going to go down here, go to time configuration. I'm going to set the frame rate to custom, set that to 60, because if you save it at 30, it'll look like it's moving in slow motion. And then I'm going to go ahead and set the frame count from like 500 so we can figure out where it ends. So for me, it looks like it ends at 4:48. So I'm going to set the end time to 4:48, the start time to 1. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on one of the meshes here. So right here, and then I'm going to go over here and remove bone numbers. You need to remove bone numbers in order for the animation to work. Otherwise, it's not going to target correctly in the game, and it'll look fucked up. Some games don't have bone numbers in the RE engine, so you know what, then you won't have to worry about it there. And I'm going to go ahead and just hide any bones that I am not going to want exported. So in my case, I don't want any physics bones. So any bones ending with cloth, I can go ahead and hide. So in my case, I would hide the waist cloth, stomach cloth, go ahead and hide all of these ones, select child nodes, hide those, hide that as well, because if you export them, what'll happen is it'll basically look like this. It'll look stiff, it won't move as your character moves, and it'll look weird and icky and gross, and we don't want that, because that looks bad. So then, this one. So, once you have all of your bones hidden, you're going to go ahead and just select everything that's visible. I went ahead and hid the meshes just for convenience. You're going to want to go into Open Mot List, choose your mot list, so in my case it's going to be 100 Special, and then I'm going to go ahead and choose the animation that I want to replace. In my case that's going to be 10, the dance animation. And I'm just going to go ahead and inject the animation. If you want, you can do enable, disable, repeating on it, but if the animation that you're replacing doesn't automatically like repeat, you're gonna have to go into some of the other files and edit that usually to get it to repeat. But that's a whole other can of worms. I don't feel like going over that right now, but I'm just gonna press inject animation and it should be done. And so now we are good to go ahead and make a mod folder for this. And then once you're at like the folder that you need to get to, make absolutely sure you remove the .new. And then if you open up the mod manager, go to all mods, right here, modified to pass, so we should be good to go. So let's launch the game and take a look. Alrighty, so as we can see here, I'm loaded up in the void, so if I go ahead and just do his dance taunt, you can see that the dance I imported is working as intended. Hell yeah. So that's the guide. That's how you do it. If you have any questions, don't leave them in the comments, 'cause I'm not gonna read them, I promise. Go to one of the Discord servers, link there. Ideally, Infernal works if you want to do DMC stuff, Modding Haven if you want to do any other RE Engine game. Because God knows I don't read the comments. So yeah, generic catchphrase.